This is Italy, a country of over 59 million people, once a gateway of hope for thousands of migrants seeking a better life. Primarily for economic opportunities and better job prospects, the country is now shutting its doors. New immigration laws, mass deportations, and border crackdowns are redefining the country's stance on migration. And this change has been accelerated by a surge in illegal border crossings, highlighted by an increase in arrivals from North Africa. Italians have been rated as having the most hostile views towards migrants in Europe. And in 2017, 70% said there were too many migrants. As of 2025, that feeling is still there. In 2023 alone, 157,651 refugees and migrants arrived in Italy by sea, compared to 105,131 in 2022, representing a 63% increase. Over the same period, 1,283 people either died or went missing in the attempt to cross the sea. But this has been going on a lot longer than you might think, and it's only getting worse, leading the country to finally take action. Despite Italy's crackdown, migrants keep arriving, which could lead to a major humanitarian crisis. Some critics warn that these harsh immigration policies might harm Italy's standing in the European Union. And this raises many questions. Why is Italy only cracking down now? Will their efforts be strong enough, or is it already too late? Now, Italy's Prime Minister has warned Europe will be overwhelmed by migration unless the EU finds solutions. Over the course of 24 hours, around 6,800 migrants disembarked from 120 boats. That's a few hundred people more than Lampedusa's full-time population. A once Christian nation now faces a tidal wave of Islamization. Churches defaced, crime surging, entire neighborhoods transformed beyond recognition. But in the wake of Moscow's terrorist attacks, Italy has joined France and other countries in raising its security alert level. Italy, situated in southern Europe and surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea, has a long history as a cultural and economic hub, dating back to the days of the Roman Empire. Its location, featuring a lengthy coastline that stretches over 7,900 kilometers, makes it a prime entry point, with many fleeing conflict, persecution, and economic hardship from countries like Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria. Italy's proximity to North Africa means that it often serves as the first port of call for migrants seeking refuge in Europe, causing significant challenges in managing migration flows and integrating newcomers into Italian society. A prime example of Italy's immigration crisis is Lampedusa Island, a primary arrival point for migrants, which witnessed an overwhelming influx of over 11,000 arrivals in just 1 week in September 2023, despite a local population of only around 6,000 residents. This surge put immense strain on the island's resources and infrastructure, aggravating an already critical situation seen throughout the whole of Italy. According to El País, during this influx at Lampedusa Island, there was simply not enough space or food for all of these people. They noted how from time to time, as food was being distributed, fights broke out and the police were called, charging at the migrants. Many of these migrants were rejected food and water and, as a result, had to ask for help from Lampedusa residents. And this is not an isolated or one-off incident. Across all of Italy, the overcrowding in detention centers and a severe lack of adequate housing have pushed the system to its breaking point, leading to brutal humanitarian conditions, with Amnesty International claiming that migrants and people seeking asylum in Italy are being unlawfully deprived of their liberty in detention centers that are in many ways worse than prison. As things have gotten worse and worse, local mayors have repeatedly sounded the alarm, warning of potential humanitarian breakdowns as communities grapple with the challenges of accommodating such a sudden and significant number of newcomers. In 2022, the Italian government said enough is enough. But would it be that simple? Sky-high numbers of migrants are arriving on Italy's shores, and the country's far-right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is facing increasing pressure at home. Promises she made during her election campaign about curbing the number of arrivals appear increasingly empty. Giorgia Meloni's election as Prime Minister of Italy in 2022 marked a major shift in the country's approach to immigration policy, propelled by her platform of Italians First. Central to her mission statement was a firm commitment to crack down on illegal immigration, a message that strongly appealed to voters worried about their country. Meloni's tough immigration policy won strong support from right-wing groups, leading to new, strict immigration rules. Key initiatives included plans for mass deportations of thousands of irregular migrants, particularly focusing on North African nationals. Alongside this, her government introduced longer detention periods, allowing migrants to be held for up to 18 months while awaiting deportation, a substantial increase from the previous limit of 3 months. Additionally, stricter asylum rules were implemented, including tougher screening processes and expedited deportations for applicants whose claims were rejected. Giorgia Meloni's government has also reinforced Italy's military involvement in managing the migration crisis, deploying naval patrols with the explicit purpose of blocking migrant boats from reaching Italian shores. And the reinforcement doesn't end there. Meloni's administration has taken controversial steps to rein in the operations of refugee rescue boats, often manned by non-governmental organizations, NGOs, dedicated to saving thousands of stranded refugees in the Mediterranean. A new code introduced by her government aims to impose strict regulations on these rescue missions, effectively limiting their ability to operate freely in Italian waters. This move has sparked significant backlash from humanitarian groups, which argue that the real issue lies in the failure of other EU states to uphold their humanitarian responsibilities toward migrants. All of this had led many to call Meloni's mission the most aggressive immigration crackdown Italy has seen in decades. So the question is she taking things too far? Or do the people of Italy back her all of the way? Well, in 2016, a worldwide survey found that Italian respondents held the most hostile views towards migrants in Europe. By 2024, a report from Italy's independent private social research institute, Census, demonstrated a growing concern among Italians about the numbers of migrants arriving in the country, with 57.7% of respondents fearing migrants' lifestyles. So what exactly is it that they are scared of? Scenes like this are unfolding in the south of Italy and have authorities concerned. The groups violently fight amongst themselves and often use weapons to terrorize retailers. In the central Italian city of Macerata, those simmering tensions escalated into violence. In January, 3 Nigerian migrants were arrested for the brutal murder and dismemberment of an 18-year-old Italian girl named Pamela Mastropietro. In Italy, growing concerns over migrant-related crime have increasingly become a focal point for far-right parties, which assert that migrants are contributing significantly to rising crime rates. People are increasingly worried about safety and how immigration might change their society. Though official data shows a more complicated correlation between immigration and crime, many people still feel less secure. According to a YouGov poll conducted in 10 European countries in December 2021, immigration to Italy was considered excessive by 77% of Italians, a higher share than in all other countries. A 2016 study by Confcommercio found that between 2010 and 2014, illegal immigrants committed crimes at approximately 57 times the rate of Italians and 29 times the rate of other foreigners. In January 2025, Simon Mersica reported that more recent data from Italy indicates that while migrants constitute approximately 8% of the population, they are involved in a disproportionate percentage of crimes. Homicides and attempted homicides at 28%, assaults at 33%, sexual crimes at 41%, and burglaries at 49%. The pressure on public services in Italy has become a significant concern, particularly in the southern regions where schools, hospitals, and shelters are fighting overcrowding and resource shortages. In January 2024, Euronews reported that emergency departments in Italian hospitals are in chaos and on the verge of collapse. They noted how in regions such as Lombardy, patients are crammed into waiting rooms until a bed becomes available. In cities such as Turin, hospital overcrowding has even led to a shortage of stretchers for patients. They added that the worst situation was in Rome and its region, where more than 1,100 patients were waiting to be admitted. To that, Italian natives frequently express feelings of neglect, believing the government is prioritizing the needs of migrants over its own citizens. As unemployment hovers around 6.3% and inflation continues to rise, many Italians perceive migrants not as contributors to the economy, but as competitors for jobs and resources. And this feeling is made worse by the strain on welfare programs, which are increasingly burdened by the growing migrant population. So it's clear that Italy's crackdown on immigration is largely driven by the sentiment of giving the country's people a better quality of life. However, there are behind-the-scenes pressures at play here too. I have spoken with all political leaders in the past weeks in Italy, and my message to Italy would be to remain at the heart of Europe. I have no doubt each one of us can move the problem to another. And we understand it. Political and economic pressures are certainly driving Italy's crackdown on immigration, with the European Union demanding that the country take decisive action to curb migrant flows or face potential penalties. Italy's efforts to curb migration serve not only to address domestic challenges, but also as a strategic tactic to maintain favorable relations with the European Union, as countries often try to offload on each other. In response to this pressure, Italy is advocating for EU-wide migrant quotas, insisting that other member states must share the burden of migration more equitably. To further this agenda, the Italian government has struck deals with Tunisia and Libya, providing financial aid in exchange for their cooperation in blocking migrant boats from departing. Also, in suit with broad EU measures, Italy has employed anti-mafia tactics against migrants and those standing in solidarity with them. This approach has led to the implementation of controversial tactics, where migrants intercepted at sea are often returned to North African detention centers, many of which are criticized for their inhumane conditions. Compounding these challenges is Italy's staggering public debt, which exceeds 140% of GDP, the third highest in the OECD, prompting officials to argue that reducing costs associated with migrants is essential for stabilizing the nation's public finances. Consequently, the intersection of political motivations and economic realities has shaped a stringent immigration policy that reflects both domestic frustrations and the pressures exerted by the European Union. Irregular migrant arrivals to Italy by sea decreased significantly in 2024, with a drop of approximately 60% compared to the previous year, also representing a 3-year low. Meloni proudly stated that is undoubtedly attributed to Italy's actions. But success aside, what does all of this mean for Italy and beyond? Will there be consequences? We've made 43 requests to ports between different maritime authorities concerned: Libya, Malta, Italy, and now France. It is urgent. We absolutely have to find a solution for those who are very fragile and whose conditions have been deteriorating in the last few days. Italy's crackdown on migration has substantial implications, both domestically and across Europe. The increase in deportations and detentions is likely to reduce the number of migrants reaching European shores, forcing many to endure perilous conditions in North Africa, where they may remain trapped and vulnerable. This approach has drawn condemnation from human rights groups, who label Italy's policies as inhumane, further straining relations with humanitarian organizations and pro-migrant advocates. Politically, Italy's hardline stance is influencing other EU nations, with countries like France and Germany adopting similar border policies to curb migration. However, the long-term risks are deep. Despite Italy's efforts, migration arrivals persist, potentially leading to a humanitarian crisis that could eclipse national policies. Critics warn that such stringent immigration measures may also erode Italy's standing within the EU, jeopardizing its reputation as a champion of human rights and cooperation in a time when solidarity among member states is crucial. So it's fair to say that Italy's war on immigration is a turning point for the nation and potentially for Europe as a whole. With rising public frustration, mounting economic pressures, and a government determined to enforce stricter policies, Italy is redefining its stance on migration. But will these harsh measures solve the crisis or create new problems? For now, only time will tell. What about why Australia is suddenly declaring war on immigration?